So My Hero Academia chapter 297 is out, and with it comes the exhilarating tale of the Prison Break arc, if it can even be called an arc. And boy oh boy is this arc full of all the My Hero goodness we know and love. Seriously, this chapter is bonkers. But before I begin talking about this chapter, I'm first going to go into a quick summary of what happened last time. In the last chapter, we were introduced to what seems to be the epilogue of the Paranormal Liberation War arc. It opened up, letting us know that Shigiraki escaped with only a handful of his allies. The remaining heroes are currently on cleanup duty as they desperately try to save as many lives as possible from the utter carnage caused by Gigantomachia and Shigiraki. With multiple cities in ruins and countless lives lost, the most notable of which being UA's resident youth enthusiast Midnight, heroes and civilians alike question the state of the current hero society. The main question being, what's going to happen with Endeavor after the Dabi revelation? After some heartbreaking panels, this chapter finally ends with a broken up All For One controlled Shigiraki scoffing at the fact that people are questioning what is going to happen tomorrow, when according to him, his turn has only just begun. And as it swaps between All For One and Tartarus prison and Shigiraki, All For One proclaims that he will not give the heroes even a moment's rest as he commands his Nomus to free his real body. And this is where chapter 297 picks up. This chapter opens up with the gloomy shot of the infamous Tartarus prison, accompanied with some exposition. Apparently, the prison uses a 6-tier system for the inmates. Basically, the prison is broken up into 6 floors. Each floor signifies the potential threat level of the inmates inhabiting said level, with the 6th and lowest floor being inhabited by the most dangerous criminals there is. So basically, it's a messed up tier list for the most powerful villains in My Hero Academia. There's also a tidbit revealed here in the exposition about how anyone who is deemed a severe threat to the nation is locked up regardless of whether or not they've had a trial. This is an interesting little note, as it got me wondering, who decides if a person is a threat or not? I understand cases like All For One and Shigiraki, people who literally obliterate entire cities, not needing a trial. But for the smaller cases, the less threatening, who is the one to decide whether or not these people get a trial or are just sent straight to Tartarus? This one line adds a bit more depth to the politics in My Hero and instinctively leads me to believe that this is a flaw with the hero's society. I mean, this one point is enough information to develop a great villain's backstory. Just imagine a person whose loved one was unjustly locked away, never to be seen again for no apparent reason. And so, they themselves turn to crime in an attempt to create a revolution to change an unfair and unjust society. It really makes you wonder about what other flaws exist in this superhuman society for which we are unaware of. But anyway, let's get back to the plot. After this first panel, Shigiraki and his Nomus begin their siege into the maximum security prison, where they are confronted by a squad of robots and 2 heroes, Gygus and Briris. I definitely butchered those names. Fun fact, the names Gygus and Briris are a reference to creatures known as the 100-handed ones in Greek mythology. These creatures help Zeus and the other gods overthrow the Titans and guard Tartarus pit. It's fun to see a reference like this, and they're dead. After the first few moments of the siege, it cuts to a conversation between 2 prison guards inside the prison walls. The 2 of them are discussing Gigantomachia's upcoming arrival into Tartarus. However, the conversation takes a turn when one of the guards asks why they can't just kill him. To which, his co-worker replies saying guns aren't strong enough to penetrate his skin, and because he's a human, the use of a missile is deemed unethical. Now this conversation is actually fascinating, as it really dives into the ethics of the My Hero world. The guard's response to why they can't kill Gigantomachia implies that killing a villain isn't out of the ordinary. He never mentioned any laws or regulations. The only reason he gave was that it was unethical. This is a very strange fact and holds a lot of implications. Heroes aren't allowed to kill villains under normal circumstances. We know this as Factum mentions this to Kirishima during the work studies. But if a villain is arrested, can they be deemed to be dangerous and be executed? If they can, well, that opens up a whole different can of worms for the hero society. The 2 guards continue the conversation of executing villains as one of them talks about his disdain for people locked up in prison, viewing them as beasts in human clothing. Now the other guard scolds his co-worker for his derogatory comments, but he does so by warning him that everything they are saying is being kept on file. He never actually disagrees. During this conversation, we get to see glimpses of the inmates on the bottom floor of Tartarus, one of which is Kurogiri, the Warp Gate villain. However, his face is silhouetted out, and from the outline, he actually looks a lot more like Oboro than he does Kurogiri, potentially hinting at further development and the possible return of the young, I guess he's old now, hero. After the guards finish their conversation, an alarm goes off in the facility, locking up all the floors. It then cuts back to Shigiraki and the Nomus outside fighting their way into the facility. As the siege rages on, Shigiraki begins to gain some consciousness and fights back against All For One. Shigiraki struggles for control of his own body, questioning All For One's motives. He claims that he doesn't want to be a pawn in All For One's game, to which All For One replies, "You are not just a mere pawn. You are the most important of them all. You are my future king." With this statement, we get a glimpse inside the quirk All For One, as Shigiraki tries to use his quirk to destroy his master's vestige, but is stopped in his tracks by All For One's power, which wraps around him like strings around a puppet. It's a great image and really helps to display the real inner struggle between these two characters. But as this is going on within the body, outside, Shigiraki and his Nomus manage to destroy the surveillance tower, knocking out the power in the prison. While the power only goes out for 3 seconds, it is enough time for All For One to unleash his quirk and begin a prison riot. And here is where things get funky. With the inmates causing chaos within the prison, we come across a few familiar faces. The first of which is Muscular, the villain Midoriya fought at the training camp and used 1,000,000%, doesn't even make sense, but I love it, of One For All on. Muscular doesn't seem to have changed much. He's still rushing out, taunting and attacking his enemies. After Muscular, another ghost of the training camp past appears in the form of Moonfish. He was the terrifying full-body straitjacket wearing teeth villain who faced off against Bakugo, Todoroki and Tokoyami. You know, the guy who eats flesh. That monster. And as he murders plenty of guards with his disgusting quirk, it seems that just like his pal Muscular, he hasn't changed much at all either. But after these two, the story focuses on a character we've never seen before, an unnamed woman with bangs and striped short wavy hair. Now initially, I thought she might be some extra, but then I realized that she was shown earlier in the chapter when it was showing the silhouettes of all the other big villains in Kurogiri. I have no idea who this woman is, and it doesn't show off her quirk, although she does mention using it. The only thing that might hold some semblance of a clue is that she's the only person whose inmate number is visible. The number is C-466569698. If you have any theories as to who this person is, please do let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. But anyway, Mysterious Girl is escaping from the facility when she hears banging on one of the cell doors. When she goes over to free the inmate inside, it's revealed to be none other than Kai Chisaki, aka Overhaul. You know, the guy who fucking did my boy Mirio dirty. And as Overhaul sprints out of his cell, still armless may I remind you, he simply just says, "Father." And finally, the chapter comes to its end with all of the inmates reaching the surface and with one final shot of All For One coming face to face with Shigaraki as he proclaims that this is the beginning of a transition into the new era. The era where the new Demon Lord is born. And so begins the story of the greatest Demon Lord. And thus, the chapter comes to an end. Now I gotta say, a lot of stuff happened in this chapter. From the return of some familiar faces, introductions to new ones, the insurrection of the world's worst villains, the fall of the most secure prison in the world, Shigaraki and All For One's inner conflicts, subtle conversations on the politics and ethics of the hero society, and finally, the rise of All For One. I mean, man oh man are the villains dominating at the moment. They may have lost an army, but they have almost instantaneously gained a new one. When All For One said the heroes aren't going to have time to rest, he sure as hell was not bluffing. This is setting up for something absolutely spectacular, and that's saying something after the arc that literally just finished. Who knows what's going to happen next? But let me know what you think. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and comment what you think is going to happen next. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.